To say that the 2023 season wasn't kind to NASCAR's most popular driver would be an understatement. Everything from injuries to a suspension and a winless season had many fans and figureheads in the industry questioning Chase Elliott for the first time in his career. So in today's video, I want to break down what all went wrong in Chase Elliott's 2023 campaign, how everyone reacted to it, and what's next for the young champion. Chase Elliott's season immediately started off on the wrong foot at Daytona, being involved in the first multi-car accident of the day on lap 112. Forcing him to retire and finish 38th of the 40 drivers in the field, continuing Elliott's streak of horrible luck in crown jewel races. Perhaps we should have taken this as a sign of things to come, but the following week at Auto Club, Elliott would rally late in the race to finish second, perhaps showing that he would have the speed to offset any further bad luck he encountered. But nobody could have predicted the monumental setback that would happen next. Just ahead of the third race of the season at Las Vegas, it was reported that Chase Elliott had fractured his tibia in a snowboarding accident. To put that in terms that more people can understand, he broke his leg. This would cause Elliott to miss the next 6 races, a huge setback for sure. But it almost looked like a blessing in disguise for a brief moment in time, as all 4 Hendrick Motorsports cars were handed down massive 100-point penalties and, more importantly, 10 playoff points for modifications made to the hood louvers at Phoenix. With Elliott being out of the car, he miraculously managed to dodge these monumental penalties, until the appeals panel decided to reverse this penalty only a few weeks later. So yeah, Elliott was still riding the bad luck train even when he was sitting at home in bed. But no big deal, right? I mean, Kyle Busch missed 11 races in 2015 and still went on to make the playoffs and become the champion. And with so many road courses on the schedule, how could Elliott possibly go winless? The first 5 races of Elliott's return looked promising. A top 10 in his first race back in Martinsville, 12th at Talladega, 11th at Dover, 7th at Kansas, and 3rd at Darlington. After the whole field wiped themselves out in the final few restarts, but hey, a top 5 finish nonetheless. During this stretch, however, Elliott's Hendrick teammate Alex Bowman would also be hindered by an injury sustained from a sprint car race. When Bowman returned, he announced that he wouldn't be racing sprint cars for the rest of the season to put his full focus on NASCAR. While this did reignite the debate on whether or not NASCAR drivers should partake in extracurricular activities, Bowman did catch noticeably less flack from most fans than Elliott for his injury. Probably because it was still racing related, so it could be seen as Bowman just keeping himself sharp. I mean, Larson does it all the time and it seems to work wonders. Snowboarding, well, that's a bit more debatable. But the tone for the entire season would shift the following week at Charlotte, when in a moment of blind rage, Elliott would right hook Denny Hamlin into the wall at nearly 180 miles an hour, committing the cardinal sin of stock car racing. An enraged Hamlin would immediately call for the suspension of Elliott in his interview at the Infield Care Center. And with NASCAR setting the precedent by suspending Bubba Wallace the previous year at Las Vegas, there was no weaseling their way out of this one. The amount of blowback they would have gotten for not suspending Elliott for committing the same maneuver would have been cataclysmic. So the executives had to swallow their pride and suffer through another week of bad TV ratings at Gateway. Elliott would once again return with a vengeance though, heading the 2 road courses in one of his best oval tracks in the schedule. He would post 3 consecutive top 5s at Sonoma, Nashville, and Chicago, quickly eating away at the massive points deficit he found himself at. If you asked almost anybody in the industry at the time, they would have told you that he didn't even need to win. He would just point his way into the playoffs at this rate. But his train of momentum soon stalled after that. He was still finishing in the top 15 most weeks, but was noticeably choking away any opportunity he had to earn stage points. Whether it was due to questionable strategy calls or simply qualifying in the back, without stage points, this was still a tall mountain to climb. And after a huge DNF at Michigan, one thing was clear going into the final 3 regular season races. This team would need to win to make the playoffs. And with back-to-back road courses on the horizon, this battle was far from over. Elliott would come up just shy of a win at the Indy road course, putting together an incredible charge in the closing laps, but not quite being enough to pass Michael McDowell. To make matters worse, McDowell was one of those drivers hovering around the cut line, so his upset win at Indy made things all the more tough on Elliott and his team. It was clear at this point if a win was going to happen, it would have to come at Watkins Glen, by far Elliott's best track on the schedule. After another unusually lackluster qualifying effort, Elliott would slowly but surely climb the leaderboard. But just past the halfway point, it was clear that the 9 car just didn't have the raw speed in it to win this one, and they'd have to get aggressive with strategy. And aggressive they were. According to Alan Gustafson, when the fuel stumbled, Elliott should have had 3 extra laps when they flipped the reserve switch. When this audio was played in the broadcast, most fans were baffled. It's commonly been known that the reserve switch usually only gets you 1 extra lap on most oval tracks. How are they going to get 3 on a 2.5 mile long road course? Well, the short answer is, they didn't. And as the 9 car sat motionless in the bus stop, finally Chase Elliott was faced with the gravity of his situation. a must-win scenario heading into the final race at Daytona. Meanwhile, Elliott Nation was calling for Alan Gustafson's head. You would have thought this man was a traitor to the United States government by how much outrage there was. And while Elliott put himself in position to win at Daytona, at the end of the day, it's still a superspeedway race. And very few people have better wingmen on their side than Brad Keselowski. So Elliott's bid for the final playoff spot would come up just short. At the very least, the 9 car did manage to make the owners' playoffs though, thanks to some solid runs from Josh Berry's time in the car. And by scoring 5 top 10s in the last 10 races, Elliott would take the 9 car all the way to the round of 8 in the owners' points. But even then, he never looked close to having race-winning speed throughout the playoffs. And while you can argue that most of Hendrick's resources were going to Byron and Larson at that point, we have to remember that these two were consistently 2 of the fastest drivers all year long, not just in the playoffs. Alex Bowman even led the points for the early portion of the season prior to his back injury. Elliott was the only one from start to finish of the season who just looked off the whole time. But again, the 9 teams still finished 10th in the final owner standings, providing a snapshot of what the year could have looked like for Elliott if he wasn't sidelined for 6 races. Heck, he's only 1 top 5 finish short of 2023 champion Ryan Blaney, and that's despite all the races he missed. But overall, this season was defined less by results for Elliott and more of a series of uncharacteristically bad decisions. From snowboarding after the season had already resumed, to right-hooking Denny into the wall only a few months after Bubba was suspended for the same action, and the only thing he made the news for in the last handful of weeks was dooring his teammate Kyle Larson on pit road at Kansas after minor incidental contact. I think Danielle Trotta's comments following this event summed up Chase Elliott's 2023 as well as possible, saying, "Chase's behavior was totally unacceptable in a year where his decision-making has been questionable to the point of being suspended." And I think even the most die-hard Chase Elliott fans can agree, there's a lot of truth in this statement. Some may say it's a minor incident being blown out of proportion, but it's indicative of a larger issue with Elliott's mentality in 2023. Maybe Elliott was just fed up with life kicking him while he was already down, but at the end of the day, you're a professional athlete and you gotta keep your composure for the good of everybody on the team. But with the season finally being behind us, this could be the much-needed reset that Chase Elliott has been looking for. Love him or hate him, Chase being competitive is good for the sport of NASCAR. So hopefully we'll see a hungrier, faster Chase come 2024. Break a leg next year, Chase. You know what I mean. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for more awesome NASCAR content.